There's something nobody tells you after pregnancy loss. They don't tell you that your body has been communicating with you all along, through your cycle, through your symptoms, through signs that were always there, that no one ever sat down and helped you read. For so many of us, we spent years, sometimes decades, on the pill, not knowing that our bodies weren't actually doing what they were designed to do. And then loss came. And then the question came, why did no one tell me any of this? Today's guest, Emma Goff, is a fertility awareness educator and miscarriage doula who works at the intersection of cycle literacy, body trust, and reproductive loss. She's the kind of practitioner most of us wish we'd had, the one who stays through pregnancy, through loss, through the grief of that first bleed after, through the fear of trying again. What you're about to hear is a conversation about coming home to your body, about the information that should have always been yours, and about what becomes possible when we finally stop outsourcing our knowing and start listening. Welcome back to the podcast. Welcome to the What I Wish I Knew After Pregnancy Loss podcast. I am your host, Sharna Southern. I am an angel mum, a rainbow mum, a pregnancy loss practitioner, and trauma-informed coach. I created the Institute of Healing Through Pregnancy Loss out of my own experience with loss in the hopes to provide understanding and healing, educating people on pregnancy loss, and creating more women or men in trained support roles. In this podcast, I hope to shed light on what I wish I knew in relation to pregnancy loss, opening up the conversation, breaking the stigma, and bringing real-life stories plus guest experts. Thank you for being here with me today, and let's dive into today's episode. Welcome to the podcast, the intersection of pregnancy loss, fertility, trauma, and purpose, having the conversations that should have been happening all along. Today, I have with me Emma Goff. Emma is a certified fertility awareness educator, miscarriage doula, and the host of the Cyclical Doula Podcast. She teaches fertility awareness-based methods and body literacy to help women understand their cycles, make informed reproductive choices, and feel more connected to their bodies across every stage of life. Through her work, Emma helps women understand their fertility signs, rebuild trust with their bodies, and make empowered decisions after loss, birth control, postpartum, and just being a woman. She is especially passionate about supporting women in the often overlooked spaces of motherhood. Her perspective is informed by both professional training and personal experience, which shapes the care and attentiveness she brings to conversations around reproductive health and family experiences. Thank you for joining us, Emma.
Absolutely. I'm excited to be here.
I'm excited to have this conversation with you as well. And like we said before we started recording, it is such a valuable topic to be aware of after loss, but also before it too, in the whole fertility planning space. Did you want to share a little bit about your story?
Yeah, sure. I am just like who I am now, too. I'm a mom of two kids. I have a 4-year-old and a 6-year-old, and my husband and we live in the United States. And I came into this work, and part of my story was just like wanting to avoid pregnancy for a longer period of time without using any type of hormonal birth control. And that came from a variety of like values and personal preferences, and didn't want to deal with side effects and all of those things. And so I came to realize that there are these fertility awareness based methods out there. Sometimes it's also called natural family planning, and that they can be like, there's so much science behind them of this is how our bodies work. And it's really been such an eye opening experience at the time that I was learning about like how to actually track your cycle for family planning. I also was doing a lot of emotional intelligent work. It was about the time that I was pregnant with my kids. And it really just came into this time of a huge growth period of how when I became a mom and all of that aspect. And now being a parent and having littles, I am now in this space of when learned all the information, I was like, why did I not know this sooner? And as any time that I teach a client, they're like, wait a minute, why did I not know this sooner? And I think right now my heart is really about teaching adults that they can then feel confident teaching their kids too, so that we're bringing up this next generation of feeling like we do know sooner because they know sooner and they have the shame around it's gone, there's more knowledge around it and all of those things. Yeah, and I came into this space. A lot of people usually have questions about like why I have this miscarriage doula training as well, and I think when you work with people so closely with their cycles, loss is a part of that, and I wanted to be able to be there and support people for that. I have my own personal experience of I have not experienced a physical loss myself, a pregnancy loss, but my mom had experienced multiple pregnancy losses and one second trimester loss. And so as a young kid, that hit me hard and it's been part of my story going through life. So I think that's just been another aspect of who I am and how that's intertwined within my work.
Yeah, that's so interesting. Like, I haven't had anyone really come onto the show and speak about that perspective of it either, being that you were
Yeah.
the sibling of
Yeah.
the mum that was going through, not sibling of the mum, but the sibling
Yeah.
at the time the mum was going
Yes.
through reproductive loss. And you often hear stories like for me, my mum didn't experience any of that. And so it was just like pregnancy just happens but
Yeah.
you not experiencing it firsthand in your body, but being the child that's experiencing it in the environment at home absolutely does. It makes you aware of this world, and a
Mhm.
lot of people aren't growing up. So to be able to bring that element of it into your work is so special
Yeah.
and so powerful. Because, like you said, if you're working closely with women and their cycles, that's often something that you'll encounter as well.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah, something like you said, you weren't told, and your clients aren't told
Yeah.
about your cycle health. Like it's something that I wasn't told about through my journey. And it's something that you touched on before we started recording as well, that it is part of an insight into your health. Did you want to share a little
Yeah.
bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think there's this really cool thing about how our bodies cycle on a regular basis is that this like main event of ovulation in best case scenario, obviously it's not the case for everybody all the time, but that there's this buildup of estrogen, ovulation takes place, and then there's progesterone. And that's best case scenario that's happening regularly. Hormones are doing that. Our bodies are in a state of like best case scenario, but for a lot of women that like that's not necessarily what their experience is, and we see a lot of hormonal fluctuations, and we see people whose cortisol is really high because life is stressful with all of the things that we're juggling as just people. And with that, our reproductive system's kind of one of the first things to go. And so I think we're able to then see that we're going to get this huge window into our reproductive health and how our body's functioning when we're able to see how our cycles are happening or not happening. And you're able to just see from cycle data, is progesterone being produced at least like decently well? Or are you possibly ovulating on a regular basis? Do you have enough cervical fluid to even have estrogen being produced to make ovulation happen? And all of those things like that, those are things that we can see with just these vital signs that our bodies do naturally when it's in its best state of health.
And it's something that I wasn't aware of until after my experience with loss. And so I'd gone through like years of being on contraception
Yeah.
and not knowing how my body actually works. Because from when I got my first period, they're like, no, you're going to go on the pill because it's going for too long and you're losing too much blood. And then I was like
Mm.
my iron was dropping really quickly. So they're like, no, we're going to put you on the pill. So for the really like half of my life,
Yeah.
that was what my body just knew. And it wasn't until I was trying to obviously conceive then, but not once did they say that any part of my, hormonal history, like the things that my periods were never,
Hmm.
they were never regular. They always went for too long. There was always heavy. It was always really heavy, and I was pain
Yeah.
and really painful. They're
Mm.
like, no, that's fine. You can still fall pregnant. And I look back over that now after the miscarriage, and I shifted doctors at that point, and your body wasn't ready. And
Mm.
if you have actually someone to sit with you and actually look, like you said, look at your cycle. It is an indication of where your body's at, what it's actually doing, and what it might not be doing so well, where it could be improved. And
Yeah.
I ended up going through the miscarriage to find that out. And I was like, I wonder if someone sat with me and went through all of that with me,
Mm.
whether you do go down the path of having a miscarriage, or maybe you do. Maybe that's just part
Hmm.
of how it happens for your body. It's just the awareness is just not there. And that's why you get your
Yeah.
clients who are like, wait, what? There's actually
Yeah, absolutely.
there's stuff here that I should know that not the doctors aren't telling me.
Hmm. And I think you bring up a good point about your experience with bleeding too. I hadn't mentioned that earlier, but that's a usually one of the biggest like red flags that people are aware of. Like you mentioned that you knew that you had heavy and painful periods. And I do think a lot of healthcare professionals don't necessarily ask the right questions about, okay, but what does heavy actually mean? Or what does painful actually mean? And let's see like what else could be going on versus just dealing with trying to stop that, which obviously is important for certain people in certain seasons to it. I'm not gonna like that the medical system is important in the sense that there's options out there, but being able to not just cover up the symptoms when you can find some of the underlying root causes too.
Yeah, you and actually have someone to feel like they're actually listening to you,
Oh, for
especially
sure.
especially when it's funny. I had a real deep down sense that it was not right the way that, you know, how heavy they were. I'm like, they shouldn't be this heavy. They shouldn't be this painful, like debilitating. And it was almost made out that I was making it up, like so that I do have a really low pain threshold. So my idea of pain might not be someone else's idea of pain, to the point where, I was in pain and I couldn't go to school. That continued all through into my 20s, and even still having the GPs saying it's fine, just
Mhm.
go through, just push through, just if you want to fall pregnant, it will happen. And then it didn't for so long. For someone, what's something that we can, it's educating ourselves, right? And like you said, it's also educating our children
Mm.
with awareness that we don't have. And like I said before we started recording, a lot of the women that are going to be listening in have probably already experienced loss or even infertility and loss.
Yeah.
What's something that they could do for themselves, an awareness that they could have, or even if it's just to listen to themselves, and what questions maybe to ask the GP so that they can get maybe the right care or just being referred to the right person. I know it's such a hard thing to talk about, is our menstrual cycle, but it is important obviously in our fertility journey.
Yeah. Absolutely. I think for me, the things that always come up is that we should feel comfortable having these conversations with the people that we're trusting in our circles, and that there's nothing about our menstrual cycle that's going to be like shocking to people that are actually working in this space. Like gynecologists, they see all the things, right? So like it to some degree, like it shouldn't be shocking to them when you tell them that you have a super heavy period, right? But I think the first thing that a lot of women find helpful is when we're thinking about like where we're at right now, especially for those of you who have experienced a loss or might be currently dealing with infertility. And for those who, like you had mentioned with your experience, were on contraceptive or hormonal birth control for a long period of time, we have to just give ourselves some grace to know that most modes of actions of hormonal birth control is to shut down ovulation from taking place, which again has its time and place of that being an important thing. But when we're taking it for years on end, that our body isn't ovulating. And so, especially when we start taking it very soon on, we after we first hit menarche, which is our first period. So when we're young teenagers and taking it right away, and then on it for 10 to 15 years for so many women, which is often the case, it takes time for our bodies to figure out how to ovulate again, especially when it usually takes like around 6 years from that first period for our bodies to regulate cycles to begin with. And so it's if you like think back to what your cycle was like, if you were cycling early on, and if there was any experiences and any troubles that were happening then, those same things are probably going to come back up if you've been on hormonal birth control for a long period of time. And so giving yourself grace and know that, yes, like wanting to start a family or wanting to be pregnant again, if you already have been pregnant, is such a time that like there's a lot of longing for that for a lot of people. And although I don't want to tell anybody to not try for a certain amount of time, if you have the capacity and the mental space to give yourself some grace and help your body regain nutrients and feel like it can ovulate again, can be a really good starting point. But for those people who haven't been on hormonal birth control and their bodies just aren't doing what they want them to do, being able to just listen to your body and see what's taking place and just starting to notice what patterns are there with cervical mucus and what patterns are there with your basal body temperature, like your resting temperature or hormone patterns. Those can just having that knowledge base can be really helpful of, is my body possibly ovulating and are we missing the window of when I'm ovulating, or are we is there something else going on? I think there's a lot of male infertility that we don't always look at right away too, and that can be something that's a huge factor in how that infertility plays out as well.
Yeah, it was actually really interesting trying to reconnect with again, I didn't even think to do it after I came off birth control, but reconnecting to my body and my ovulation
Yeah.
after the miscarriage. And there is it is very easy to just want to jump back in and go again. But like you said, we do need time. Our body needs time to, like you said, regain its maybe natural rhythm, to have healthy patterns, have healthy fertility after loss. And feeling ovulation for the first time after the loss was so bizarre. But to also understand that you are postpartum after loss as well. So we do need to give ourselves that time. And like you said just before with the looking for the mucus and stuff like that, is that how you can start to chart your ovulation after loss? Again, are there the signs to look for?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So that's the signs that we look for all the time. And I'll mention that, like you mentioned, that time after a loss is postpartum, right? Whether or not, however, the loss happened, like that is your body is going through this postpartum experience. And so it takes some time for the hormones of HCG to come down and for our bodies to start trying to recycle again. And it can take 4 to 6 weeks on average for most people, sometimes closer to 8 or longer, depending on when loss actually takes place. But yeah, so when we're looking at our cycle, becoming aware of cervical fluid or cervical mucus, and just a big part of it is just becoming aware of like sensations in and around your vulva and your vagina, and then visually if there's any observations of fluid and mucus, and just like writing those down. It can be as simple as that. Obviously, like, there's some interpretations that you can have to get more knowledge base around that, but that can be a really good starting point, because you can see when there's this buildup of stuff that looks like egg whites, like that means that you have super fertile quality mucus taking place. And that's the best time to get pregnant. But being able to track that, like that could be helpful to see what those patterns look like. And if you're not seeing any cervical mucus or fluid, then there's a chance that your body is not yet having those hormonal patterns taking place.
If you've ever felt helpless sitting across from a pregnancy loss client, this is for you. Your training taught you grief stages. The medical system calls it a medical event. Investigate only after 3 losses. But pregnancy loss is trauma, and trauma lives in the body. I am Sharna, and I've created the pregnancy loss recovery method because what we've been taught isn't enough. June 1st, I'm hosting a free masterclass revealing what's missing from every postpartum, counseling, and even doula training I've seen. The neuroscience, the nervous system, the trauma-informed lens that changes everything. We will be covering the gap, the science, and the solution over 3 days. The missing piece, what your training didn't teach you about reproductive trauma and loss. June 1st. The registration link will be in the show notes, so head there and join the community. This is for practitioners ready to do more and lost mothers ready to become the support they needed. Yeah, and I guess, again, like you said, it's going to take time. So if that's not
Mm.
happening, not rushing back into trying to conceive again after loss. Like you've got to wait for your body to maybe catch up and be able to
Yeah.
do that first.
Yeah, I do think so. Obviously, everybody is so specific about what's going to be best for them physically and mentally and all of those things. But a huge piece of it, I do believe, is like being able to just take some time to be able to make sure that you're feeling best case scenario mentally, and then also physically to be able to have your body physically heal from that and be able to have the best possible pregnancy coming up next.
Yeah. I guess that's it. It is not just about going back to the doctor and going, when can I try again? It is,
Yeah.
and I think a lot of it, and it's a lot that and it's what I believe in. We can understand where our body is at healing wise when we learn to listen to it. When
Mhm.
we stop going to that, yes, like you said, the doctors absolutely have their place and the specialists have their
Right.
place, but we can do that for ourselves first. We can listen to
Mhm.
our body. We can understand where it's at. We can understand its fertility window. Is our body ready to go through this again? Mentally,
Right.
emotionally, asking yourself, where am I? Like how have I been able how have I been able to move through this healing emotionally, mentally, and also physically? Because it's very easy to just go the physical, go, when can I start again? And totally
Mhm.
ignore the emotional and mental aspect of it. But our body is always communicating with each other, with
Yeah.
all of its other parts. We can't make a decision based off one thing, like one part of us that might feel ready if the rest of it isn't yet.
Yeah, definitely.
With your miscarriage doula part of support, how do you work that in with women who have, is it to support them through the mental and emotional aspect of it as well as the fertility, or how do you work those two together?
Yes, that's a great question. So I don't have formal, like it's just doula, right? So it's not any formal like mental health training. So I do want to like disclaimer that. But I think a huge part of being there for people is just like having a village that feels safe, right? Like that having people that can support you because I'm often the first person to know that somebody is pregnant because of their charting, other than maybe their partner. I might also be one of the first person that they tell that there's a loss, and being able to just hold space for all the feelings that need to come up for that is really my goal of, and being there to support them through all of that, and knowing that also like if they're if they're choosing to wait a little bit to start trying again, that there's going to be another cycle and there's going to be another bleed. And like that next bleed that happens might bring up all of those feelings again. And we can like just hold space for that in there too, of just talking through it and having somebody else to listen that's maybe not part of their everyday life and can be able to just again hold space. But I am also like a huge advocate for let's get you like professional mental health help as well with a therapist or somebody like that too.
Yeah, like, and it's about building a team. Like you're not
Yeah,
just, you don't need to be the one and only support person. We
right.
can understand there is, again, there's more parts to us than just our brain or our body or the organs. So there's parts that do need deeper support, and sometimes understanding that a therapist, a counselor, other specialists
Yeah,
can become part of that team to support that person. But I love that they are almost with you. It's like you're literally walking beside them through their fertility journey, whether they have become pregnant, and then if there is a loss. What I love is that you don't, I find it very hard when women are referred away, especially
mhm,
when there is a loss, that you generally don't tend to seek that support unless, you're walking straight into it afterwards.
yeah,
So for you to be able to walk through potentially one of the most happiest times of their life to find out that they're pregnant, to also one of the most turbulent and most challenging times of someone's life as well. But then also, it's almost like you could potentially see them full circle. You could help them
yeah,
with their subsequent pregnancy, but also hold them, because then again, the subsequent pregnancy after loss is
yeah,
not
so many feelings. Yeah.
so many feelings, so many fears, doubts, stress, and it's not your typical pregnancy after loss. It's not your typical pregnancy. In cases, that's how you get treated. It's just like a normal pregnancy. And you're like, no, it's not. Because there is so much, like you said, even from that first bleed, like there is so much grief and emotion that continues to rise through that experience, and for you to be able to hold them through each of those transitions.
Yeah, absolutely. That's why like I call myself a cyclical doula because I'm like with you through all of your cycling aspects of life. Exactly.
Yeah, yeah. It's not just the cycle of the menstrual cycle, it's the cycle of those transitions that you're
Yeah,
navigating as well.
absolutely.
And it's very hard to find. It's hard to, and I was having this conversation the other day. There are multiple people out there doing multiple different things, but it's very hard to find the one person that can fuse all of that together to
Mm,
be that person. And like you've said, you have witnessed the loss world yourself. So to be able to bring that element into your work, it's just so valuable.
yeah, absolutely.
What else do you feel like women need to hear in either their fertility journey after loss?
Yeah, I think like the thing that comes to mind is there's no right or wrong way to go through what you're going through. And like I could share something, you could share something else. Other people are going to share experiences that worked well for them. And obviously, there's like health concerns or health things that we're looking at, like making sure that you're physically recovering well on all of those things. But otherwise, there's no timeline. And even though I talked about earlier about like maybe taking some time before trying again, if that's not your situation and you want to try right away and that's like good for you, like that's fine too. And I think there's this sacred space of adding to a family and having these intimate moments with your partner and going through all of these processes to grow your family in any way possible, and being able to just know like whatever you decide is valuable, and like you deserve to have all of the answers that you need to make those choices and to feel confident in making those choices in your time frame.
And make sure that you're trusting the right provider with those
Yes.
questions.
Yeah,
Finding the
for sure.
finding your person, because it might mean it meant for me having to shift doctors,
Yeah.
potentially not go to the doctor for certain questions, seek other professions, other people, not necessarily
Mhm.
like community or friends, but other, even not even just the specialists that we're entirely aware of, people like you,
Yeah.
people that are
Yeah.
outside where the doctor would usually refer you, because people like yourself hold so much information and knowledge and awareness like yourself in multiple different ways, and potentially in a way that a medical professional can't hold you. But
Hmm.
I know for myself, it was finding my way outside the medical system for the most part. And then obviously touching back in on certain things and then finding my
Hmm.
way in different ways. But finding the people for those questions so that you can get the answers for you, so that you can get the most, informed and aligned answers for yourself, not just someone that's just going to spit something out.
Absolutely. It's so important.
Yeah. And we touched on birth control prior. Is there, and you've mentioned it too before, obviously, if they don't want to try again straight away, but they don't want to obviously go back on birth control, is there
Yeah.
another way that they can do that for themselves that's not having to go down that path again?
Yeah, absolutely. So that's what fertility awareness based methods are. So you can use your cycle to track when you're in that time of your cycle that you can get pregnant. And so you can use that the opposite way too. So you can use that to avoid pregnancy. And so you can have this knowledge base of, okay, like I am producing a lot of cervical fluid, and therefore this is generally the time that I'm abstaining. If you're seriously trying to avoid, like if you need some time, there's specific methods out there. So I teach ones that look at cervical fluid and basal body temperature. So it's called a symptothermal method. But there's ones that just look at cervical fluid, and there's ones that add in urinary hormone testing and all of those things. And they have this structure of when you what we call opening and closing this fertile window. And so you can use the time outside of that fertile window knowing that you're completely infertile and there's no possibility of pregnancy occurring in that time. And then some people choose to just abstain during that fertile window, depending on their intention levels. Other people choose to use some other like barrier method if that feels comfortable to them to trust in a barrier method during that fertile time. But yeah, so that's a really good option of just being able to become aware of what's happening. And then I also feel like that's really helpful for some people going through loss too, of like your next bleed isn't going to creep up on you. Like you'll have this data to know that like it's coming in this very specific time frame, and that can feel good too, of just having this knowledge of it's not going to be a surprise, so you can mentally prepare for that as well.
Yeah, mentally and emotionally have
Yeah.
something in place for you don't plan to go anywhere, plan to
Yeah.
maybe nurture yourself and nourish yourself in that time. But it's really good awareness. It's something that, again, I wasn't aware of. And obviously, in that
Mhm.
time after loss, you're so caught up in everything that my period did surprise me. And it was like a
Yeah.
huge slap in the face. And it wasn't until a couple of months out from my loss that I started to go, okay, I need to figure something out for me here. And it
Mhm.
was not using principles of what you teach, but it was just that I
Yeah.
came to know it through, I went and saw my acupuncturist, and she's like a
Yeah.
Tibetan monk as well. So she was like this really calming energy, and she was just talking me through. Obviously, I went to her specifically for my loss to help me move through that and help my body move through
Mm.
that. And yeah, she supported me in understanding and actually listening to my body. She's, it's talking to you. You do know when you're ovulating, you do know these things. And I was like, I don't. But she's, no, you just got to listen. So
Mhm.
that's what I did. I spent another couple of months after that just listening.
Yeah.
And I became so much more, I felt more empowered because I was understanding when I was ovulating, when my period was coming, and how long it was lasting for. And it started to become a lot more something I had never experienced before. My period was within a certain time frame. Like it started and it stopped. And I was like, my gosh, like this has never happened to me before. I'd bleed for two
Mhm.
weeks and stop for a week and then bleed for another 2 weeks. It was just
Mhm.
ridiculously not predictable at all.
Yeah.
So yeah, I wasn't aware of obviously anything that was available apart from contraception, but just learning to listen to my body made it very powerful. And then you being able, like you said, being able to then use that to support
Yeah.
yourself in not only just knowing your body, but then also in the contraception side of things. If you don't want to have to go on the pill, which I refused,
Yeah.
and just know that you don't have to go down that path, but it can be very empowering to get in touch with your body.
Absolutely. I think that's a huge part of it of just I love watching clients like gain that confidence at like at anybody who's experiencing charting their cycle, gaining that confidence of being like, oh, like I like can know when things are happening and feel super confident and feel more empowered about both their own like cycles and also like for a lot of people it can change their intimacy levels with their partner because they're not like having this overwhelming thought of oh will I get pregnant and not want to in this particular time frame and all of those things can be really beneficial and just yeah that empowering feeling is awesome.
Yeah, it was. Considering I spent most of my years relying on a pill to tell me when I was going to be experiencing anything, and then realizing that I wasn't actually having a period. I was just having like withdrawals off the actual contraceptive itself.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, so this whole time my body really hasn't been ovulating, hasn't really been having a proper period, hasn't been doing anything that's technically what it's designed to do. But I stopped it. And like you said, for
Yeah.
probably 15 years, good 15 years,
Yeah.
I stopped it. So it was very difficult to touch back in. And it wasn't until I had the chat with my acupuncturist that she was like, you can do that. And I was like, really?
Yeah.
I can? And then now you're here and you've got this beautiful way of supporting women to do that and to reconnect with their cycle and to also be held in those moments after loss as well. Because when it comes down to it, like when any cycle after loss, it's a huge trigger.
Yeah.
So being able to be aware of these methods to, like you said, chart your cycle and potentially mitigate having this like being or blindsided by your
Yeah.
period And you can almost pre-plan having some time to yourself and making it a really healing moment as opposed to a moment of complete shock.
Absolutely. Yeah. Being able to take some time off from work if that's a possibility, or just building in some more alone time or time with people that you love can really be beneficial in that when you're going through that process for sure.
Is there anything else that we haven't covered that you'd like to share?
That's such a good question. I think for so many people who are in the space of trying to conceive and going through infertility, I think you can be so bombarded with, you should do this, you should do this. Here's this cool tool that can help you get pregnant faster or help you have more knowledge base around all of these things. And there's some really cool technology out there and which can be really helpful. But for so many women, I think there's power in just being able to know your own body and feel confident in your own body and trust in your own body and know that it's doing like the best that it can, and like you're doing the best that you can, and you can turn off all that other noise and just listen to your body because your body knows what it needs and how to support it if you're willing to take the time to listen and trusting your gut of knowing that when things feel off, that they might feel off, and you can find other support for that. But you don't necessarily need all the supplements, or you don't necessarily need all the cool tech out there. You can just learn your body and know your body well.
Yeah, that's so true. And it can, and then you just get caught in the noise and you get caught in the
Yeah,
overwhelm, and you've got to draw the line somewhere. And I think, like you said,
absolutely.
coming back to yourself, just for you, first and foremost, for your healing, listen to your body, come back to you, and then explore what's out there. Then, if you
Yeah.
feel, okay, yeah, I have clarity around this, this is what I'd like to try, rather than just feeling like you're chasing after each shiny object, like making it maybe fill a void or fill a gap that you feel like you're missing. But like you said, your body can tell you what it needs if we can
Mhm.
spend the time to listen.
Absolutely.
Sorry.
It's good.
If anyone would like to obviously reach out to you to open the discussion further, to see what you do, how you support people, where can they find you?
Yeah, good question. So I hang out on Instagram the most as like my preferred app of choice, and I'm there at Cyclical Doula. And but my website is emmama.com. So EMMAMMA.com. And you can find me on there. All my contact information is there as well. But yeah, feel free to start following me on Instagram and just send me a message and start asking questions because I'd be happy to chat with people in any way. And I know you're in Australia, right? So
Yeah.
if there's people there, like I do work with people internationally. So if you like wanted support and you're in a different country, that's totally fine. I can work with anybody anywhere.
That's amazing. Not just in person. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
And like I've said, I love how you can use all of your like tools, your experience to help women who are navigating not only understanding their body, understanding their cycles for their fertility, but also if it does end up that they experience loss in amongst all of that too, that you can support them. They don't have to go anywhere. They can continue on their journey with you and rebuild again their trust in their body, rebuild that connection again to then continue their fertility journey. I love how you're able to do all of that for women. It's not out there enough. And so I really do thank you for the space that you're holding, the work that you're doing. I appreciate it. I wish I had it when I was going through my healing journey. And I know that there are going to be women out there who are now looking to potentially go down that fertility journey again after loss.
Yeah.
And I really do encourage them to reach out to you because understanding your body, I think, was like a huge pivotal moment for me in my journey in
Yeah.
having a healthy pregnancy. I really do encourage them to reach out to you and see how you can support them.
Yeah, that would be great. I'd be honored to talk with anybody. So, yeah, thank you.
No, thank you so much, Emma, for being a part of the podcast today. I appreciate you.
Yeah, absolutely. It's good to be here.
Thank you to all that have listened in. If this episode was valuable to you, I invite you to leave a review on Apple Podcast, and I look forward to supporting you on the next episode. Thank you for listening in with me today. I hope you found this episode helpful. If you did, I would absolutely love to hear from you. Take a screenshot of this episode, share it to social media, and tag me at instituteofhealing_PL. I love seeing what is resonating with you right now. If you want to chat further, I invite you to connect with me through Instagram. Head over and follow my Instagram account, send me a DM, and let's open the communication. If you want to know more about how you can be the support for others, head to the show notes and fill out the application form for the Pregnancy Loss Practitioner certification. I want to also note here that what I share within the episodes is not medical advice. If you need further support, please consult your doctor. Thank you again. Much love to you. Be gentle with yourself, and I look forward to supporting you on the next episode.